Hi guys, and welcome back to my week 2 upload lesson for the second semester. Today I thought I'd show you guys not only how I water these plants, but how I record my data. As a reminder, I'm recording the average height of the plants, the average amount of adult leaves, and the average amount of fruit. When it comes to the pre-bought plants, I divided the numbers by the amount of plants I put into the soil to get that average. As for the plant ones, it is not the average. It is just the highest, the tallest height, the most amount of adult leaves in the box for that specific plant, and the most amount of fruit. I will showcase how I count that up and all that other stuff a little bit later in this video. But for right now, I will be showing you how I water the plants. So in last week's video, I explained these boxes, the plant boxes that I'm growing the plants in, and how they have a self-watering feature showcased in the bottom of the box, around like a good 2 to 4 inches up here of the box. It's full of water, so that when need be, the plants could absorb the water via its roots. And usually, it's been raining a lot, but usually I also drizzle some water on top so that the topsoil gets water as well. But with, the very, very precipitate climate we got at the moment, I haven't been doing that as often as to not to overwater the plants. Right here, I have 2 basins of water, each a little less. It's more like half a gallon of water. Prior to this video, I already put in 1 gallon, and now I'm just showing you guys how I do it again. So usually I have help because these jars are heavy, but for the sake of this video, it will be just myself. So these black tubes right here funnels the water directly into the bottom soil. I usually make sure it's centered, and then I just pour right in, hoping that it's accurate. It usually isn't, which means I have to go get more, because I want to make sure there's at least 2 gallons of water in here at all times. Because plants are living beings, and just like we need to eat, sleep, drink, plants need to eat, sleep, drink. And if they don't have water to drink, they'll go into their state of, starvation. I just realized that I did not film. Alright, well, next time I'll make sure that the camera is centered on that tube while I pour that one in. But we got one more to do, so let's just go ahead and do that. Alright, once again, you want to center the tube. Make sure it's all the way down so it goes directly to the bottom of the box. And get this lined up and pour. All right, there we go. So for the first 2-3 weeks of me watering the plants, I used my hose, and I stopped. I decided to change methods so I could properly record how much water each plant box is receiving, because when using the hose, I just kind of eyeballed that, which is one of the reasons I believe these plants are changing color, either via underwatering or overwatering, because I did not know necessarily how much water or not water these plants were receiving. So I scratched that, solidified in my mind. Gonna have 2 gallons in the bottom, do around 1.5 quarts for topsoil. As I said, it's been raining a lot here, so I really have no control how much water the plant boxes have been receiving via rain. So on those particular days, I've been giving them like less water via topsoil and less water in the bottom boxes, but it's been like a few days, so I thought I'd replenish that real quick. And so now onto how I actually record my data. So like I said earlier in this video, for this box right here, which are all seeds, unfortunately the chives and the oregano have not sprouted yet, but the mustard greens have, so we're going to be focusing on those. I don't have my ruler to me, and I don't have access to my ruler, but I would usually eyeball what the highest leaf is, and it's usually over here. It's usually this one right here, which is where I base it off of, but I take multiple different ones so that I know is the tallest one. I measure on the inches side because that is easier for me to read. Got a little bad eyesight. And I'll measure the plants and I'll mark it to the nearest hundredths place, and I'll record that in my notebook. When I go back inside, I convert it to centimeters. I've measured all of my heights in centimeters thus far, and I will probably continue to measure them in centimeters. When it comes to adult leaves and number of fruit, similar thing. So right now, none of the plants in these boxes have fruit, so that's just a solid 0 across the board. But for leaves, I count the number of adult leaves, which is vastly different than just the leaves we see every day. So for mustard greens, these leaves right here are the adult leaves. This is more of like the starting of the fruit, kind of. This will grow into fruit eventually. But I only record leaves that look like this because these are their adult leaves. And I take the very, very, very grueling task of counting every one. For Saturday, I think it was either this Saturday or last Saturday, I counted 167. I'll have to go back and I'll probably plaster the update to my data right about now of what I recorded this Saturday. I record data every Saturday. Only do it once a week. Now for this particular box, I record data a little differently. So when I originally bought the plants, they came in pods of 6, and that's diminished over the coming month and few weeks. But the original number of plants put into the ground is 6 of each type. So 6 iceberg lettuce, 6 broccolis, and I had 6 pods of parsley. For this one, I also do the same thing. I kind of eyeball it, see what's the highest leaf. I do I do not stick, mind you, please do not stick your ruler deep into the soil. That could disrupt it. But I do place it on the top soil to catch the tallest leaf, and that's how I record the height. These are also recorded in inches and converted into centimeters when I go inside. What I've started to do though, because these plants are leaning over and they start leaning over, I would record its height as it is now, like as it is sitting, and also its height if the roots are strong enough to hold it upright. I don't necessarily do that for the iceberg lettuce because it is supposed to fall down like this, but for the broccoli and the parsley, it's not. So I record the height of it leaning over as it is now, and its height when it's actually supposed to be standing up. Standing up as in like this one right here versus this parsley right here, which is obviously taller, but it's leaning over. When it comes to adult leaves and fruit, I individually count the number of adult leaves and I divide it by the total amount of plants still here. So for the iceberg lettuce, there are still 6 of them. So I count the amount of adult leaves and I divide it by 6 to get the average amount of adult leaves. Each individual plant I planted in the ground is growing at different rates. However, when you're usually planting things, you don't want just one plant to succeed. You want the majority of them to do so. So I'm collecting the average to get, quote unquote, the majority, the most likely. And I do also have the margin of error. I will displace that right here. It's plus or, if I remember correctly, it's like plus or minus 2.5 plus or minus 2 something in terms of height for the iceberg lettuce. In terms of height for the parsley, it's a lot higher. It's like plus or minus 4. The broccoli, as I said, isn't doing so well. I'll have to consolidate and think about it and research more on how to either fix it or where to move forward in terms of the broccoli plants. Parsley, the numbers of adult leaves and the number of fruit are the same because the leaves are its fruit. But for the lettuce, this one in particular is sprouting up just nice. All right. Thank you guys. That's usually how I record my data. But a lot more research is really going into it because, at least for the mustard greens, a lot of these plants usually have acres to grow amongst each other. And I just don't have that space necessarily. And a lot of you probably won't have that space. But we're trying to minuscule it down and make it as accessible and as easy as possible to grow and receive positive results. I'm probably going to put up once again my data with the additional data from last Saturday up on your screen. And I'll probably present you guys with what I'm going to do with my broccoli and future steps with that particular plant species in my next lesson. Thanks, y'all. Bye.